Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Hem Khosla, and on the show today, we'll focus on the upcoming general elections in India. Zee News-Matrize are presenting the first opinion poll following the formation of alliances with new partners joining the NDA and the emergence of the INDI alliance. What's the expected breakup of the seats, and will Prime Minister Modi's big southern push benefit NDA in the 2024 polls? That's something that we will be exploring on the show today.
Also on the show today, France is preparing to make abortion a constitutional right after the Senate voted in favor of it. The French government, lawmakers and senators have argued that the right to abortion needed full constitutional protection as it comes under threat in the US and other countries in Europe. We are going to be bringing you the latest on that front as well. But first, let's take a look at the headlines.
The US Supreme Court agrees to hear Donald Trump's claim that as a former president, he is immune from prosecution, further delaying his trial on charges of conspiring to overturn the 2020 election.
US President Joe Biden remains fit for duty with no new health worries, says his doctor, after the 81-year-old's last medical ahead of an election in which his age is a key issue.
France's Senate backs a government move to enshrine the freedom to have an abortion in the constitution, which will now be voted on at a special Congress.
In a first-of-its-kind opinion poll after the formation of alliances conducted by our network, Zee News-Matrize shows NDA's vote share likely to increase by over 5% in 2024 polls. The NDA is poised to win 377 seats against the INDI alliance 93 seats.
Police arrest Trinamool leader Shahjahan Sheikh, accused of sexual atrocities and land grab. The arrest comes 2 days after the Calcutta High Court made it clear that there is no stay on the arrest.
The newly elected Pakistan National Assembly holding its inaugural session today. Ahead of the session, former Prime Minister Imran Khan's party writes to the IMF, says the world body should factor in the country's political stability in any other bailout talks.
Manchester United book a blockbuster quarter-final clash with rivals Liverpool in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup. The Red Devils overcome Nottingham Forest courtesy of a late winner by Casemiro.
He says it's my goal. It's certainly Bruno Fernandes's contribution that is massively telling. And it's almost... area. Hudson-Odoi in the wrong position. And it's a really...
Now, the US Supreme Court has agreed to hear former President Donald Trump's claim of immunity from criminal prosecution.
And this is, of course, as the Republican frontrunner faces allegations of overturning the 2020 presidential election. The US top court has scheduled the date of argument during the week of April 22nd, while adding that Trump's trial on the same charges will remain on hold for now. Earlier, Trump was scheduled to go on trial for election interference on the 4th of March.
Now, the former president has hailed the Supreme Court decision in a post on his Truth Social, saying that a president must be free to make proper decisions.
Supreme Court said the arguments will aim to address a single question, and that is whether, and if so, to what extent does a former president enjoy presidential immunity from criminal prosecution for conduct alleged to involve official acts during his tenure in office. Now, earlier, a 3-judge appeals court ruled that Trump has no immunity from prosecution as a former president. As they said, Trump's immunity claim is unsupported by precedent, history, or the text and structure of the Constitution. Now, the ruling was a major legal setback for Trump.
The election conspiracy case against Trump was filed by special counsel Jack Smith in August. For long, the counsel has been pushing for the March start date for his trial. On the other hand, Trump's lawyers have repeatedly tried to delay the trial until after the November election, as there's a chance that Trump can drop all of the federal charges against him if he does win the 2024 presidential race. Trump is the first former president to be criminally prosecuted. At the same time, the case once again puts the United States top judicial body in a critical situation.
As the 6-3 conservative majority includes 3 justices appointed by Trump, the Supreme Court also is due to issue a ruling on whether to overturn a judicial decision from Colorado's Supreme Court that bars Trump from Colorado. US President Joe Biden is fit for duty with no health worries. Now, this is according to his doctor.
The 81-year-old leader went through medical checkup ahead of the general elections, where his old age has now become a key issue among voters and, of course, rivals as well.
Now, the annual examination report by the Walter Reed Military Medical Center also comes after a special counsel report that described Biden's memory as hazy, fuzzy and poor. According to White House Dr. Kevin O'Connor, the only new issue this year is Biden's use of a machine to reduce sleep disruption and an emergency dental procedure.
As it relates to, you were asking me about a cognitive test. As it relates to that, look, the president doesn't need a cognitive test. That is not my assessment. That is not my assessment. That is the assessment of the president's doctor. That is also the assessment of the neurologist, who has also made that assessment as well.
The report said though Biden continues to suffer from several minor issues, there is no significant change in them as compared to last year. This includes a stiff walk due to wear and tear in his spine and a minor heart valve. The examination also did not find any signs of neurological problems like Parkinson's.
Earlier, Biden slammed the special counsel report while adding that his memory is fine. Meanwhile, the US president is also facing growing calls to take a cognitive test. However, White House says that Biden's doctors claim that the leader doesn't need one.
He passes a cognitive test every day, as he moves from one topic to another topic, understanding the granular level of these topics.
Republican frontrunner Donald Trump has repeatedly mocked Biden's age. Various polls say that maximum participants believe Biden is too old to serve another term. And if elected again, Biden will be 86 years old at the end of a second term in office. Now, for more on this story, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us the latest from New York. Listen to this.
President Biden's physical exam comes at a time when polls indicate that Americans are concerned about his old age and have expressed reluctance about supporting him for a second term. A recent special counsel report investigating President Biden's possession of classified documents repeatedly mentioned Biden's memory, calling it, quote, hazy, fuzzy, and poor, having significant limitations. It also noted that President Biden could not recall defining milestones of his life, like when he was vice president. Now, testing of memory and cognitive abilities is not usually part of this routine physical that President Biden underwent on Wednesday. But what is a routine checkup for any president without much fanfare is in the spotlight when it comes to President Biden, especially since the elections for the next president is just mere months away. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Let's shift our focus now. French citizens will soon have access to abortion as a constitutional right.
Now, the French Senate has voted overwhelmingly to enshrine the right to abortion in the Constitution, and the European nation is now just one step away from the historic feat.
Tonight, the Senate has written a new page in women's rights. This vote is historic. We will be the first country in the world to enshrine in the Constitution the freedom for women to have control over their own bodies. This vote reiterates to those who don't know it yet that women in our country are free. This vote reiterates how attached we all are to this freedom.
Before the constitutional amendment becomes official, it must receive approval by 3/5 of lawmakers in a special meeting called a Congress. The meeting is planned for Monday and is considered by many to be a rubber stamp since both houses have already backed the bill. The Senate adopted the bill on a vote of 267 in favor and 50 against. The vote came after the lower house, that's the National Assembly, overwhelmingly approved the proposal back in January. Remember, abortion, it's been legal in France since the 1970s, but pressure had grown to further cement it in law.
The move was sparked months ago from across the ocean. It came in response to a rollback in abortion rights in the United States when the US Supreme Court decided to overturn Roe versus Wade in 2022. Within weeks, many proposed bills were presented to solidify the right in France so that it cannot be repealed by a future government seeking to curtail abortion. Instead of a right, abortion will now be a guaranteed freedom in France, overseen by Parliament's laws. In the upper house debate that witnessed little pushback, it was apparent that senators were cognizant that they were making history with the vote and sending a signal to the world. At the Nova festival site in southern Israel, the families of Israeli hostages have begun a long march towards Jerusalem.
Right, and the marchers hope that the remaining 134 hostages are brought back home soon. Their hopes are further raised by talks of a ceasefire, of course. The festival site that's near the Gaza border, this is where hundreds of Israelis were killed and hundreds more dragged away into Gaza back in October.
145 endless days and nights of yearning for our loved ones, which send them strength and ask them to hold a little longer. Omer, just a little longer. A deal is possible. Starting today, we will march for 4 days under the message, United for the Release of Hostages. We call on the public, on our families, on our friends, to join us on this march of hope from Gaza to Jerusalem.
Since US, Egyptian and Qatari mediators met in Paris last weekend, the Israeli press has been talking of a deal to pause the fighting, but no document yet has outlined the latest proposals. Now, speculation has only increased as US President Joe Biden said that an agreement might be in place as early as Monday next week. According to a US official, the Biden administration is also considering airdropping aid from US military planes into Gaza as land deliveries become increasingly difficult.
Now, this comes after UN agencies said that humanitarian organizations are being systemically denied access to Gaza and that aid convoys have frequently come under fire.
Meanwhile, the plight of Gazans continues to mount, getting worse by the day. About 20 bodies were brought to a hospital in Gaza's Deir el-Bala after Israeli airstrikes hit refugee camps in central Gaza. On the same day, Israel also struck Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. The Israeli military released a video showing the strikes on targets in towns close to the Israeli border. This came after Hamas said it launched 2 missile salvos from southern Lebanon into northern Israel.
And that's not all. Amid soaring tensions, Syria's defense ministry has said that Israel carried out strikes near Damascus. The ministry added that its air defenses responded to the missiles and shot down most of them.
Earlier this week, an Israeli strike in Syria near the Lebanese border had killed 2 Hezbollah members. Infamous Kremlin critic and Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny will be buried on the 1st of March. The funeral service will be held in Moscow.
Now, funeral service will also be held in the Mariano district, and there is not much that's known about the funeral, whether it will be open or if it will be a private affair, that remains to be seen. Navalny died on the 16th of February in a prison in Siberia where he was being held in harsh conditions on a lengthy prison sentence. There are very few details that have been released around his sudden death. Russian authorities initially refused to hand Navalny's body over to his mother as well, but finally relented 8 days after his death.
Earlier today, speaking at the European Parliament, Navalny's wife, Yulia Navalny, accused Moscow of abusing her dead husband's body. She also cited fears that Kremlin will try to cause disruption and arrest people at her husband's funeral.
Thank you. I'm not sure yet whether it will be peaceful or whether police will arrest those who have come to say goodbye to my husband.
Navalny called on European leaders to fight what she called Putin's criminal gang. Navalny's emotional speech received a standing ovation from European parliamentarians.
Now, there has been controversy surrounding Navalny's funeral since the day his body was released. On Tuesday, Navalny's spokeswoman Kira Yarmish said his team was struggling to find somewhere to hold the ceremony. Some funeral homes had claimed that they were fully booked, while others had refused when they found out who the event was for.
Almost 2 weeks since his death, tributes continue to pour in for Alexei Navalny. From world leaders to the Russian population, they've been paying their respects to the opposition leader.
A Russian rights monitor has said that over 400 people have been arrested in more than 30 cities across Russia after laying flowers for Navalny.
Alexei Navalny rose to prominence through his anti-corruption campaigning. He exposed what he called rampant corruption at the top of Putin's administration. He was arrested in January 2021. That was on his return to Russia after being treated in Germany for a poisoning attack. Now, the head of Australia's main intelligence agency has revealed the existence of foreign spies operating in the country.
Now, the so-called A-team for several years has recruited Australian academics, politicians and business people to gain access to sensitive political, economic and defence information. In an extremely rare public revelation of counter-espionage operations, Australia's Director General of Security, Mike Burgess, revealed the existence of A-team and this unit in a bid to disrupt their ongoing operations.
Now, according to him, the unit belongs to an unnamed country. The country's top spy revealed that the unit trawls through networking sites for Australians who have access to classified information. He then said that the A-team sends hundreds of messages a day to approach their target.
Mike Burgess says the spies pose as consultants, headhunters, local government officials, academics and think tank researchers claiming to be from fictional companies. And if the target takes the bait, then the conversation is carried forward to an encrypted messaging app. A further step might involve the offer of an overseas trip to meet in person.
Now, the revelation of foreign spies operating in the country comes as Australia is a member of the Five Eyes intelligence sharing group. This intelligence group includes the likes of the United States, Britain, Canada and New Zealand. This makes it a key target for operatives from rival countries.
Australia's top spy says he made the revelation as he wants to let the other country know that its spies have been rumbled and that the unit's team leader has been confronted by Australia's own spies. The newly elected Pakistan National Assembly will be holding its inaugural session in just hours from now. A day ahead of the session, the Pakistan People's Party, or PPP, and the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz shared key details of their power-sharing agreement.
Now, this was after weeks of negotiations, of course, and the PPP and PMLN, they finally finalized the key government positions. The Prime Minister's post goes to PMLN, while the PPP, that will hold the presidency. The two parties have divided the other crucial roles. They also include the Senate chairperson, Senate deputy chairperson, Speaker of the National Assembly and the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly.
This coalition marks a major shift in Pakistani politics, with the PPP joining forces with the PMLN. Further, the parties also released a schedule for the new government assembly in the coming week. Today, the assembly session will be summoned. New members will take oath, while outgoing Speaker Raja Parvez Ashraf will be sworn in. The upcoming days will see the nomination papers for the election of the new Speaker and Deputy Speaker. They will eventually be elected through a secret ballot. This will be followed by the nomination and election of the Prime Minister, which is due to take place on the 4th of March.
Now, the magic number that's required to become the Prime Minister is 169. Unfortunately, the PPP and the PMLN coalition boast nearly 200 members in support. This coalition breaks weeks of deadlock, sidelining the party of former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan, despite winning the most seats in the recent election. PPP and the PMLN's strategic alliance aims to bring stability to the government and navigate the challenges facing the nation.
Now, a day before the inaugural session of the new lower house of parliament in Pakistan, the party of former Prime Minister jailed Imran Khan has penned a letter to the International Monetary Fund.
Now, in this letter that has been sent to the IMF's managing director, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, it's asked the IMF to factor in the country's political instability in any other bailout talks. Imran Khan, in his letter, has sought audit of at least 30% of the National Assembly and provincial assemblies.
Further stating that the bailout talks can only be negotiated by a duly elected government that has the trust of the people of Pakistan. Now, in his letter, Imran Khan also reiterates to factor in guidelines on good governance that IMF looks for before entering into financing arrangements with member countries. IMF is yet to respond to that letter.
The letter penned by Imran Khan comes to light as Pakistan's two old guard political parties, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz and Pakistan People's Party, along with the Muttahida Qawmi Movement Pakistan, who has supported the coalition between PMLN and PPP, held dinner on the eve of the National Assembly session. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. On the other side, India is set to hold the world's biggest elections in less than 3 months from now. The ruling Narendra Modi-led National Democratic Alliance is expected to win a third straight term in power. Going by the latest opinion polls conducted by our network, the NDA will most likely return by an even stronger mandate. We'll get you the full report.
Also on the other side, South Korea will send its military and community doctors to hospitals within the next few days as part of emergency measures, and this is to support the healthcare system after a mass walkout of trainee doctors. All details on the other side. Stay tuned.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Makers of New India, a special WION series.
We are in a small town in southern India where big stories are written.
Anyo means it is a Konkani word, come here. In India, that time ice cream was little picking up. We thought why we should not start this concept in India.
We think customer is our family member. When we are making ice cream, we think that we are making ice cream for our family.
Economic turmoil and global unrest have cast a shadow over President Joe Biden's approval ratings.
The rockets are continuing to be fired by Hamas in Gaza, although at a slower rate than previously.
So, right now, we are with the volunteers from the Aleppo municipality. They are still trying to go to the rescue for the people they can find out.
India has emerged as a major diplomatic force at the world stage.
The rising cost of living in Nigeria continues to impact citizens from all walks of life.
The citizens of Gujarat witnessed a mega roadshow here in the city of Ahmedabad.
China is South Africa's largest trading partner for 134 years straight.
A domestic aircraft carrying 72 people on board crashed in Pokhara city in central Nepal.
165 injuries have been moved. 61 people are confirmed dead and rescue operations continue around me.
After receiving an entire season's rainfall in a span of 48 hours, Chennai city has literally been brought to its knees.
For WION, World is One.
We are one, you and I, burning in the sun, rising in the rain, one in celebration, one in pain, one in a tragedy, one for our rights, one in search of hope, one in our fights. One beyond borders. One beyond our race.
This could be one
in the face of adversity. We are one, you and I, and it's our right to know how and why. WION, you are more connected than you know.
On the next episode of World of Africa, election season kicks off in South Africa. African National Congress ANC and main opposition party launched their manifestos for the May elections, in which some pollsters suggest ANC's share of the vote could fall below 50% for the first time. West African ECOWAS bloc mulls new strategy, revokes sanctions for Niger, and seeks to persuade junta-led countries to restore democracy and remain in the alliance. And meet a South African mom who is using TikTok to teach young children their native language or mother tongue. Watch World of Africa at these times only on WION. World is One.
back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Here's a quick look at what we've lined up for you on this side of the show.
An Illinois judge removes former President Trump from the state's ballot, citing the 14th Amendment insurrection clause. The ruling comes as the Supreme Court hears similar argument in Colorado to keep Trump off the ballot over his involvement in the January 6th Capitol riot.
US President Joe Biden remains fit for duty with no new health worries, says his doctor. This after the 81-year-old's last medical ahead of an election in which his age is a key issue. France's Senate backs a government move to enshrine the freedom to have an abortion in the constitution, which will now be voted on at a special Congress. In a first-of-its-kind opinion poll after the formation of the alliances conducted by our network Zee News-Matrize shows NDA's vote share likely to increase by over 5%. In 2024 polls, the NDA is poised to win 377 seats against INDIA bloc's 93 seats. Police arrest Trinamool leader Shah Jahan Sheikh accused of sexual atrocities and land grab. The arrest comes 2 days after the Calcutta High Court made it clear that there is no stay on the arrest. The newly elected Pakistan National Assembly to hold its inaugural session today. Ahead of the session, former Prime Minister Imran Khan's party writes to the IMF, says the world body should factor in the country's political stability in any other bailout talks. Manchester United book a blockbuster quarter-final clash with rivals Liverpool in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup. The Red Devils overcome Nottingham Forest courtesy of a late winner by Casemiro.
He says it's my goal. It's certainly Bruno Fernandes's contribution that is massively telling. And it's almost...
Get a better view from here. He whips it into a good area. As I said, Hudson-Odoi's in the wrong position. And it's a really good touch from Casemiro.
India is set to hold the world's biggest elections in less than 3 months from now. The ruling Narendra Modi-led National Democratic Alliance is expected to win a third straight term in power. And going by the latest opinion polls conducted by our network, the NDA will most likely return by an even stronger mandate. Zee News-Matrize, which are part of our network, have recently concluded one of the first and the biggest opinion polls in the changing political landscape here in India. We will tell you what these numbers show. But first, let's introduce you to the key alliances and the major constituents in the fray at the moment. To begin with, the National Democratic Alliance, or the NDA, which is currently in power in New Delhi, is led by the Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP. The BJP is the largest party in the alliance, with a seat share far greater than other alliance partners like the Biju Janata Dal and the Janata Dal United. Now, the opposition camp claims to be united under the newly formed INDI alliance. It stands for Indian National Developmental and Inclusive Alliance. The alliance is led by the Indian National Congress, which is the largest party in terms of seat share. Regional parties like the DMK, Trinamool Congress, Samajwadi Party, among others, are key alliance partners here. Now, most of these parties were also part of the United Progressive Alliance, or the UPA, which has been in opposition in India since 2014. Now, coming to the opinion poll numbers. The Zee News-Matrize Lok Sabha opinion poll took place from the 5th of February to the 27th of February. The response was collected from over 167,000 people across all 543 Lok Sabha constituencies. The poll also included the opinions of 27,000 first-time voters. The poll results have a margin of error of plus or minus 2%. Now, the Zee News-Matrize poll shows that if the polls were conducted today, the National Democratic Alliance, the NDA, would win a whopping 377 seats in the Lok Sabha, while the opposition, INDI Alliance, will end up with 93 seats. For perspective here, in 2019, the previous general elections, the BJP-led alliance won 351 seats, and the UPA, which was the opposition alliance back then, secured 90 Lok Sabha seats. Now, the poll results have a margin of error of plus or minus 2%, as I had mentioned earlier. But talking about the vote share, the NDA's vote is likely to go up by over 5%, reaching 43.6% in 2024 in comparison to 38.4% in the previous elections in 2019. Meanwhile, the INDI Alliance may get 27.7% of votes in 2024, which is a marginal increase from the 26.6% vote share that we saw polled by the UPA in 2019. So that is essentially where the opinion poll stands as of now. Leading into the general elections, we are going to be tracking all those developments coming in from India very closely. Back to you, Ian.
Thank you so much, Shivan, for that very comprehensive breakdown there. With that, let's shift our focus for now. South Korea will send its military and community doctors to hospitals within the next few days, and this will be part of emergency measures. This is to support the healthcare system after a mass walkout by trainee doctors. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo has pleaded with the young doctors to return to work by today. The government has set today as the deadline for trainee doctors to return, warning of legal action including prosecution and the suspension of licenses by those who refuse.
In order to prevent delays in essential treatments such as surgery, we will deploy 150 public doctors and 20 military doctors who received essential medical training first in March and prepare for additional deployments depending on the situation.
South Korea's healthcare system is reeling from the strike that has left hospitals desperately understaffed for a little over a week. Official figures show nearly 10,000 junior doctors, or over 80% of the trainee workforce, have resigned and walked out of the job at 99 general hospitals.
The trainee doctors are protesting against government plans to sharply increase medical school admissions to cope with shortages and an aging society. The young doctors say that the government should first address pay and working conditions before trying to increase the number of physicians. This comes as Seoul says it has one of the lowest doctor-to-patient ratios among developed countries. Moreover, South Korea's birth rate fell to a record low last year.
The country has one of the world's longest life expectancies and lowest birth rates. This is a combination that presents a looming demographic challenge. Recession in the US. This is a topic that has leading analysts divided. Fed's mixed signals regarding rate cuts has prompted a debate on whether America is moving away or inching closer to recession.
Now take a look at our next report for more on this.
The US economy is at a crossroads. The stock market predicts the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates this year, but economists aren't so sure. High inflation remains a significant threat. Corporate defaults are surging and bank lending has decreased, signaling growing stress within the financial system. As economic indicators fluctuate, analysts find themselves divided over the possibility of a looming recession. Ellen Zentner, chief US economist at Morgan Stanley, warns of an unavoidable hard landing, citing concerns over tightening monetary policy, geopolitical tensions, and elevated interest rates. Despite expectations to evade recession, this year Zentner's forecast underscores accumulating risks that could precipitate a downturn. Despite strong job numbers and GDP data, red flags are appearing. Housing plummeted 15% in January, retail sales dropped and industrial production slowed. Some economists warn these overlooked indicators point to a looming contraction. The Fed faces a difficult choice: continue battling inflation with higher rates and risk a deeper recession, or pivot to rate cuts and let inflation linger. Deutsche Bank offers a glimmer of hope. Their updated forecast predicts US economic growth in 2024, reversing their earlier recession expectations. They cite cooling inflation and a more balanced labour market. Wells Fargo also anticipates similar outcome. However, the path remains uncertain. The US economy navigates a delicate tightrope with inflation, Fed policy, and underlying economic health determining whether we'll see a hard landing or a gentle slowdown. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And India takes centre stage at the World Trade Organization meeting in Abu Dhabi with negotiations spanning crucial agricultural reforms and the restoration of the World Trade Organization's arbitration powers.
India's Trade Minister Piyush Goyal remains optimistic about reaching significant deals here. Now, key discussions revolve around resolving disparities in public stock holding programs aimed at ensuring food security and revitalizing the WTO's dispute resolution system. Now, these talks are pivotal as India emphasizes the need for trust and fulfillment of past agreements to pave the way for progress on other trade-related issues.
Now, leading a coalition of trade ministers from 33 nations, including Indonesia, India advocates for a permanent solution to the challenges posed by public stock holdings programs, particularly crucial for food security in developing countries. With over 1.4 billion people to feed, India contends that such programs are essential despite concerns raised by wealthier nations about their impact on global agricultural trade. In the face of divergent subsidy practices, India highlights disparities in farm subsidies, underscoring the need for fair trade practices in the global economy.
As the discussions intensify, India underscores the urgency of restoring the WTO's appellate body to address pending trade disputes effectively. The absence of a functioning appellate body since late 2019 has hindered the resolution of disputes, amplifying the challenges faced by the WTO. With the clock ticking on the final 24 hours of negotiations in Abu Dhabi, all eyes are on India as a key player in shaping the future of international trade. All right, next up, let's take a look at all the developments coming in from the world of technology, beginning with, of course, the US President Joe Biden, who is signing an executive order to protect the personal data of Americans from foreign adversaries like China and Russia. This includes data such as biometrics, health records, geolocations. Biden's move targets commercial data brokers, sometimes shadowy companies that traffic personal information.
Officials say these companies may sell information to foreign adversaries or US entities controlled by those countries. Senior US officials have listed China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Cuba and Venezuela as potential countries of concern. The Justice Department also plans to work with Homeland Security officials to build safety standards to prevent foreign adversaries from collecting data.
While the world is still experimenting with text-to-video AI models like Sora, China has already aired its first AI-generated cartoon series called Qianchu Xinsong. The 26-episode cartoon
series is made using AI technology of Shanghai Artificial Intelligence Laboratory that is similar to OpenAI's Sora. According to AI Laboratory, generative AI was used in every stage of the cartoon series production process, right from art design to video generation and post-production. The series, broadcast by the China Media Group, showcases some of the most fabled classical Chinese poetry and their backstories. India's Ministry of Science and Technology has unveiled the country's first septic tank cleaning robot. The septic tank cleaning robot is called the Homo Sep Atom. The innovation aims to do away with manual cleaning methods by transforming them into robotic cleaning methods. Developed by an IIT Madras incubated startup, the robotic solution streamlines cleaning processes that require manual labor. The robot has already been deployed by civic bodies of 16 cities in India. Homo Sep Atom's deployment enhances sanitation and worker safety by eliminating the need for manual entry into toxic environments, which can save numerous lives.
India's Prime Minister has launched the country's first indigenously built hydrogen-powered ferry. It is said to have zero emission and zero noise. This, in turn, can also reduce the impact of global warming. According to Cochin Shipyard, which constructed the fuel cell ferry, the adoption of green hydrogen as a maritime fuel is at the forefront of India's commitment to a sustainable future. India has promised to cut its emissions to net zero by 2070.
On to news now from the world of sport. Manchester United have set up a blockbuster quarter-final clash with rivals Liverpool in the FA Cup.
Well, the Red Devils kept alive their last hope of winning a trophy this season by overcoming Nottingham Forest 1-0 courtesy of a late goal by Casemiro. United travelled to the City Ground, a place where former manager Alex Ferguson famously won a third-round tie to save his job in 1990. He was present in the